I would say the market currently is in its adolescence. That is, everybody sees huge opportunities, but really, almost nothing works.
Welcome back to another installment of the Next Gen AI case study series. In this series, today on this episode, we have on Leonid Glasychev. He is the CEO and co-founder of Logrus IT, which is a professional software localization company established in 1993. He has a robust academic background, having completed a master's degree in theoretical and plasma physics at the Moscow Institute of Physics and Technology, which is actually pretty insane. I didn't think that I'd be talking to a physicist. Is that accurate? Are you kind of dabbling in that area? Or?
It is, and that institute, that's rather obscure for the general American public. It's a close analog of MIT. That is, it's the most revered technical education institution in the whole country.
Wow, that's impressive. So to be to having completed a master's degree there is quite an accomplishment. Congratulations on that. I'm pretty sure it was a while ago. But so let's jump into things. I'm really curious to find out if you could just provide a quick background of who you are, where you came from, outside of what I've already shared, and how you've kind of come to find yourself with Logris.
Okay, that's quite a story, actually. So, if you do remember, there are two interesting facts in history that both fall into the 80s. So the first one is Ronald Reagan's Star Wars that were officially called the Strategic Defense Initiative, that is SDI. So at that time, both blocs took it very seriously, and a lot of resources were dedicated to the whole thing. So a lot of scientists on both sides of the pool worked on all those programs that are actually just seeing the rebirth and seeing the dawn nowadays due to totally different circumstances. Anyway, at that time, nothing worked, but the Soviet Union collapsed. As a result, there were a lot of unemployed scientists by the, say, late 80s, early 90s, because suddenly there were budget cuts and nobody needed so much investments or involvement into those areas that didn't produce much in terms of the weapons. So a lot of guys were looking for an alternative occupation, and I was one of them. So first of all, I lived in the Soviet Union at the time. The country collapsed, the economy collapsed. My research institution that worked in the military defense area, working on all those beams going through the atmosphere, it suddenly got maybe 1/10 of its budget, and we were all looking for a job. At that time, the nascent IT industry was very cool, and I thought, okay, I know the language, I know a thing or two about software, about computers and everything else, so let me explore something that lies in between the two big areas, that is language or linguistics or content and IT. So that's how it's all started, with a couple of unemployed scientists.
Wow, that's actually that's really intriguing that you find a connection between the things that you're passionate about and the work that you're doing. And I know that just from my own research, some of the things that you guys are working on over at Logris, the creative services, linguistic stuff in terms of doing translations and things like that, and then even the technical support. There's a lot of different things. It feels like it's a very multifaceted company. I'd love to get to know a little bit more about what your role is at the company and what are some of your responsibilities. What do you take care of in terms of all of those things?
Well, in our case, I mean, we're kind of old-fashioned guys, meaning that we're not only shareholders, but also actively participate. That is, all of us hold managerial roles, and it's not something completely decorative. So I'm the CEO of the company, and I'm actually responsible for a lot of things, starting from strategic decisions, where we go, what we develop, where we concentrate our efforts, to international expansion, to banking and financials, to everything else.
So I'm sure that you are experiencing some of the technological shifts in the industry that you're in, especially when it comes to things like AI and video production. Um, what is your take on the whole climate in terms of what what's coming out? How useful is it? Are you guys kind of on the cutting edge of that, or are you playing a more cautious role and kind of standing back and observing?
And that's a very interesting question. And I would say there are multiple interesting ramifications here. So the first one is we're well aware of what's happening. First of all, it's just our concentration on IT. And second, we need to be if we want to stay in business. At the same time, I would say the market currently is in its adolescence. That is, everybody sees huge opportunities, but really almost nothing works, which means I'm not saying it doesn't work. What I'm saying is in order for this to be productive, to really cut out whole stages in some traditional processes done by humans, it's a little bit too early for that. If I may, I mean, the closest analogy, for a layman is as follows. For instance, AI works pretty well when it's a particular, very singular task that you can not only try to accomplish using, say, AI-enabled features, but also immediately see the result. And after a couple of seconds of hesitation, you either accept the result or you do it the traditional way, but you do not waste time on that. So a simple thing. So the photo editor built into Windows now actually supports making your background, the background of the picture, transparent. So it can export a GIF and strip all the background from the picture, which is great because prior to that, it was a manual procedure that had to be accomplished in a more complex and considerably more expensive graphic tools. So definitely it uses AI for that, but it either works or not. So I open it, I try to strip the background, either it works or it doesn't. So I'm not delayed. I just see whether it works or not. The same thing when I ask Gemini AI or OpenAI, whatever, just to generate a picture with a particular topic in mind. It either works or it doesn't, and I'll go further. But when we're talking about production process, about real life, scenarios are more complicated, and you are not satisfied with something that's unpredictable when you never know whether it works or not. Say, every morning I'm calling someone with Google Home. Because the software evolves almost every day. It's the same call, it's the same voice, but sometimes it connects immediately, sometimes it doesn't and starts asking stupid questions or suggesting me calling the closest dentist or something like that instead of the name. So you are not ready to take it when it's not something fancy, but a part of the business process. So the thing is, everyone is waiting and sitting on the fence. When is it going to produce reliable results, say at least in 90% of the outcomes? Because otherwise, you have to double check everything using your human intellect combined with AI. And sometimes the AI may even react improperly to an incoming communication on something and ruin the business. So at the moment, everybody is exploring it, trying out a very simple, easy to check things, but I haven't seen any real implementation. So that's the first part. And the second part, just not to be too verbose, is that many of the clients, and many of our clients are very big companies and the top 1,000 in the world, say in the game publishing industry, in software, telecommunications, or consumer electronics, they do not trust it enough. And there are a number of reasons why they do not. First of all, the bigger the company, the more it is exposed. So they do not want to be sued for using the context obtained illegally by AI. And most AI engines, they generate the pictures for you, but they have a disclaimer, this fine print that says not to be used for commercial applications, just trial only. And it's smart of them to do that because much of this content actually explicitly or implicitly violates a lot of particular copyright laws. So the second thing is they are not ready to trust you to check 100% of everything. They think, okay, you found the easy way out, and some of the things may not be checked, and they may be exposed to a lot of very nasty things. So many of them at the moment, they are exploring it, but they're explicitly prohibiting their subcontractors to use AI on their projects.
It's interesting that you mentioned.
It's just the tip of the iceberg.
Right. Yeah. I read a recent article about a company, I think it was a car dealership, if I'm not mistaken, who had implemented an AI chatbot. And a customer had exploited this AI chatbot to basically get himself a free car and get the chatbot to agree to it. And then when the dealership argued with the client and said, this is not happening, we're not giving you a free car, that guy took them to court and won that court case and basically put the onus back on the company, saying it's your responsibility if you're going to deploy this technology to abide by what the technology is doing. And so if this person is having a conversation with your company and it agrees to this, you are bound by that contractually. And I thought that was just a very important precedent to be set. But it does bring up the question, how is this affecting our relationships with our customers? Do you notice any shift in your customer sentiment in the way that you guys are interacting now that this technology exists? Are people more resistant to want to work with you because they are working with faster or more limber technologies? How do you see that playing out in your?
Well, honestly, in our case, where most of our clients are big companies, rather than entrusting their suppliers to deal with, say, AI and all the ramifications, they prefer to do it themselves because this is one of the critical things. They want to keep it under control. They want to keep their legal department satisfied. They want to know what's happening. So just like with all the other technological innovations in the last 3 decades that I've been in this business, I mean, believe me, it's not the first one. So in our case, previous examples, sorry, I'm kind of deviating, but it's important to understand the historical context. It's nothing new. Say, 20 years ago, machine translation was all the hype. And actually, AI and machine translation, you cannot draw a distinct line in between those two. It's just a different, but neural machine translation, neural agents, are actually kind of utilization of AI for a particular purpose. With AI, it's slightly different because you have more context. But still, I mean, it's not the first technological revolution we're going through. Say, if we take as early as 90s, prior to that, translators used to type on their typewriters, later on their computers, but still they were typing everything in. And then translation memories came into act. That is, when you typed a particular translation, you can memorize it and then reuse it or recycle it, especially in simple cases where you just replace version 1 with version 2 and the whole sentence stays the same. So it's by far not the first kind of technological revolution in the IT service area. So the thing is, they're trying to keep it under control. They're trying to control it. They're trying to understand whether it really helps them or not. Obviously, some of the upper brass, they're buying the whole stuff because they think they can reduce costs by tens of percent. The reality is always considerably less impressive. That is, you can get some savings, but if you put all the necessary checks and balances and integrate them into the process so that you can avoid mishaps like with this car dealership, and we're talking about much bigger companies, so the exposure is incomparable. So actually the process gets much faster and much less expensive in certain areas, say in the creation area or in the adaptation area or some others, but it gets longer, more intense, and adds some stages in some other areas. So you need to check more. Because one thing, you have a human manager with all their limitations, and some of them, are not the brightest bulbs in the room, but still, they make human mistakes that are kind of predictable and easily visible. With AI, it's worse because you have to do fact checking, for instance. They can create facts, they can get something that's completely wrong, it never existed, or it was a different story completely, but still it's got there and you need fact checking. I mean, with a regular contributor, be it a translator or a content creator, typically they do not create facts out of the blue.
Right.
I mean, they make their own mistakes, but their mistakes are human mistakes. So here we have to take into account a new type of mistake. Even with, say, machine translation that we've got a lot of experience with because it's been on the market longer. Say it's translating a simple thing like a list of items you need to purchase at the store. And I'm using this example because it's very easy to understand for everyone, even people not involved in that. So suppose you're dealing with a 3 or 4-year-old. They understand normal human speech perfectly, but they do not know some words. And suppose the mother, who is in the kitchen, tells the boy, okay, go to a dad who is in the living room watching football and tell him that they need to go to the store and buy bread, milk, butter, and cauliflower. So the kid runs to the room and they know the first 3 items. They are not familiar with cauliflower. What do you think will the kid transmit?
Yeah, he's going to say something, of course.
Yeah. So, an ideal manager will tell you, I've got the message, but I didn't realize it completely. Can you please repeat? But with kids, and in many cases AI, the reality is as follows. The kid will convey the message to the dad and will just cut out the words that this kid doesn't know. So they said, Mom asked us to go to the store immediately and buy bread, milk, and butter. He'll just omit cauliflower or asparagus or whatever else they do not know. So it will, and the thing is, it's very hard to check the veracity of this because it sounds complete, it sounds human, it sounds normal, and it's a very typical thing that AI does. It omits things or it adds things. It could also add asparagus to the list, just because asparagus was mentioned in some other similar phrase 2 months ago in a different context.
So what I'm gathering from what you're sharing is that there is a very necessary human component in the work that we're doing collectively, and AI is a great tool, but it's still being built, it's still being created, it's still being developed and worked on, and has many more iterations before it is complete. And I think that's really important for people to understand that that having these human relationships, especially in our clients, the way that we work with our clients is really crucial. And I guess on that note, we can shift gears here a little bit, just to kind of, we're coming to a close here for the episode, so I just want to make sure we cover all of our bases. In terms of you work with a lot of really big companies. I saw the list of logos on your website. It's very impressive. How do you go about communicating with these kinds of businesses in a way that makes you and your services attractive to them?
Well, first of all, overall, you nailed the summary. And in terms of communicating to these customers or whatever other customers, potential customers you are thinking about, it's an open question because no one knows how to do it best. Otherwise, there would be very, very successful businesses out there that know how to sell their services or their offerings. But at least we try to be very clear here. That is, have a concise message telling them that, first of all, if you want us or if you allow us to use AI, we'll be very careful. We'll be double checking it, and we'll be adding specific stages to the process to make sure that we double check everything even more accurately than we do in a traditional process where only humans are involved, so that they have some kind of peace of mind. So the second thing is, we stay very clear on the message saying that if you do not approve of AI use for any reason, whatever reason you have, or want to keep it under your control, we will follow it. We will not be doing something under the carpet just to cut our costs. So we're trying to be transparent and straightforward. And third, we're trying to educate them, not meaning that they know less than we do, but at least telling them everything we know about both the pros and the cons. And I would rather say it's not pros and cons, it's rather the ramifications, it's rather the changes we need to add, it's rather the expectations that we may have, the ones that are realistic when it comes to costs, completion, do's and don'ts, and all the other things. So these are the three areas we're trying to be clear and explain that we are there. We hope we're somewhere close to the cutting edge, but we do know the limitations, and we do know the needs of real production.
So what kind of challenges do you face then when trying to communicate with some of these bigger companies? I imagine that there's a lot of moving parts. There's many people that you have to get through in order to get a decision. Are these some of the challenges, or do you face completely different challenges?
Well, actually, these challenges are not related to AI or technology as such. They're dealing more, okay, I promise to be blunt, with corporate stupidity. Because some people, they order the work. Typically, they understand more about it. They know the ramifications, they know the issues, they know potential pitfalls and all the other things. But the bosses at the top, they've heard about the shining city on the hill, if I may, and they want to implement it as soon as possible because they're being promised enormous cost cuts. So the thing is, they're trying to take a marketing pitch from AI publishers for real. And that's the big problem, because sometimes, I mean, for companies like ours, I mean, with our ethical principles, we just cannot allow ourselves to do that. And these guys are sometimes making decisions, okay, let's switch to a huge provider that says they know everything, they're developing their models. As a result, typically, they're just paying more for the same thing that, in my experience, in 70% of the cases is outsourced back to my company or somebody else in the field, but with a hefty profit margin. So the thing is, they're buying the big message, and big companies are better with delivering this message because they have dedicated salespeople, considerably more marketing material and the other things. So they sell this great concept. They do not care about what really happens after that, because, once again, the big companies, the guys that are selling the service and the guys that are working on this are totally different departments.
Yeah.
So, but I would say this happens every time with any kind of IT revolution we were going through. And that's the typical scenario. And in a sense, it's a pity because, first of all, small and mid-sized business still makes the core of American economy, last time I checked. And the second thing, these guys were kind of buying into this whole concept of a shining city on the hill. They just do not realize that it's not that they're getting the services that are worse, but they're paying much more for more or less the same thing, which is ridiculous. And the other thing is that the guys at the top, I do not know, maybe it was this kind of MBA concentration trend that I think is completely irrelevant, but they tend to concentrate on financials too much, meaning that for some reason, price points are considerably more important than the real work they get.
So to kind of wrap things up here,
But that's my individual viewpoint, which may be completely incorrect.
hey man, it's opinions are a dime a dozen, but at the end of the day, there is a common theme, right? There's a thing that you've noticed that I think a lot of other people have noticed, and that is that the marketing machine can be dangerous, it can be very effective, it can be very helpful in growing a business. When it comes to the stuff that you guys have done, I don't imagine there's a lot of TV commercials that you can run that are going to attract the type of client that you want to work with.
TV. Well, first of all, we're B2B, and second, TV commercials are the thing of the past. If you want to attract the retirement crowd, that's one thing, but people who are buying these services are typically younger. They do not even know what kind of cable TV is.
Right. So what's your approach to that? How do you reach those people?
Well, actually, most of our marketing efforts go to the website because one thing you need to realize about the modern world is that it's not that you're attacking your clients with TV ads. That's the thing of the past. Or it works for some B2C targeted at more mature audiences, let's put it that way. But in our world, the clients get to you when they need a particular service or they feel a particular void in the process. And then when they go to your website, finally, if they are lucky enough, they need to find as much information and as clear explanations as possible. That will probably build 50% of the business case for you. And second, all our marketing efforts go into short publications on social media, LinkedIn, first of all, because we are trying to kind of get in touch with the crowd that are our potential customers, rather than with a totally different crowd. So I mean, irrespective of the cost, I would never order, say, a paid interview in some journal or just a TV commercial because it's totally useless.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's a thing I guess I'm in the space of marketing myself too, and I've noticed a lot of the shift has gone to online content and doing your best to kind of convey who you are and what you do online. And then a lot of the challenges that are faced by these companies now, it's not necessarily reaching those people, it's keeping track of those relationships and maintaining communications in an open and transparent way. What do you guys do inside of your business that helps keep track of that stuff? Do you I imagine you probably have a limited crowd, but big enough that it may get overwhelming to manage. Is that true?
Well, I mean, it's big enough. Obviously, there are hundreds of customers. I mean, big and small. Obviously, only say 10 to 20% of them produce 80% of your revenue, but still, you need to deal with hundreds of customers. But I mean, in our case, we've been an IT-oriented company all the time, right from the start. However weird it sounds for people who are thinking about computer technology from the 90s. Well, it was there, guys, because some of the people were using typewriters at that time and didn't know what the internet is. So the thing is, what we are trying to accomplish, and we're trying to accomplish, we're fully cloud-oriented, and I mean, the company has 6 offices around the globe. So we need, and we have a unified ERP system where we have all rates for all customers, for all types of work, language pairs, and everything in place there, as well as purchase orders, invoicing, payments, contact lists, and everything. And we're fully cloud-based, including even all the MSAs and agreements we sign with all the suppliers. It's all electronic, it's e-signature software, so that we do not waste time and have everything at our fingertips. And with all the clients who are ready to do that, and most of them are either using their own systems or ours, so no paper documentation at all. And everything done through the cloud, and people being IT savvy enough to be able to manage this thing.
So you got a pretty streamlined system, it looks like, and I think that helps kind of nurture the clients that you have, while also helping you kind of onboard or get to know ones that are interested in working with you. I think that's really powerful. Um, Leonid, in closing, I always ask the people I'm interviewing one very specific question, and I know that there's a lot that we've kind of touched on here, so it might be a challenge to be poignant. But if you could, what's one piece of advice that you would offer somebody who's in a situation, who has a similar business, who's trying to, serve a certain, type of company or something like that? What's a piece of advice that you could offer them that would help them stay the course, overcome the challenges that they're facing, and reach some level of success?
Well, honestly, it would be banal. First of all, I'm not omniscient. So I'm not even in a position to give good advice because I'm not as successful. Well, I'm well-to-do and I've built this business from scratch, but I'm not in a position to give advice. There are too many coaches, life coaches, whoever else out there giving advice. Every morning you read the news, there's plenty of it. But still, what I would say is that, first of all, be aware of the latest trends. If you try to ignore them and say that you're an old-fashioned person, it's a great message for a retirement community, but it doesn't work in the real world. And second, stick to the fundamentals, to the values. That is clarity, openness, transparency, honesty, if I may, because there are some fundamental things that are relevant, whatever time or IT era we live in.
Wonderful advice, Lennon. I really appreciate how generous you've been with your time and with your wisdom. You've shared a lot of really useful information for the people that are watching. So thank you for that. If somebody wanted to reach out to you to kind of pick your brain or maybe work with you, how would one go about doing that?
Oh, absolutely. I'm totally open to that. One can easily find me on LinkedIn, or you can share my contacts. You're welcome to do that. I'm not hiding, and I wish I were 5% as wise as you presented it. But I'm flattered.
Yeah, you've been great, Leonard. Thank you so much for this. And I'll make sure we link to you and your website in the show notes. As for us, if you want to get in touch with us, it's nextgencalls.com. And that's it for this episode. We will see you in the next one.